channel. Hope y'all are having a good weekend. Now, before we get into this, oh, by the way, this is part 2 of proceeding from the last videos. But before we get into the next red flag that I talked about, I want to bring something up that I've been following. Honestly, this has me pretty disgusted and upset. I'm talking about what I believe is this GoFundMe scam, and I believe it's a total scam. Now, you may not, but that's me. The scam which other people have been investigating. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't seen the videos on this, go over to Squirrel Girl's channel and watch the information she's gathered on this. And she's contacted GoFundMe. She's been corresponding back and forth with them and having them investigate, because there is some shady BS going on here. Now, in the beginning, this was supposedly set up as reward money for anyone who provided information leading to Kiely's whereabouts. Let's bring Kiely home. Now, it was set up by someone named Amy Quirarte. Now, who is this Amy Quirarte? Look at that. Amy Quirarte, real estate. Wow, 5-star review. Yeah. Just so happens that this is Lindsay's real estate agent. Also consider that the original goal when he first started searching for Kiely and they set up this GoFundMe for the reward, supposedly, original goal was $10,000. And then the goal suddenly changed. I don't know. I think it changed actually a few times, but it finally went up to $150,000. Now, the original cause listed in this GoFundMe was finding Kiely and bringing her home. Let's bring Kiely home. All right? But then Lindsay pulled the reward money as soon as she heard AWP was coming. And this is what it was changed to. Support for the family of Kiely Rodni, $63,272, and the GoFundMe was closed. Now, let me ask you this. Is it just a coincidence that they changed this right after hearing AWP was coming? Like I said in the previous video, Lindsay had been pushing the abduction theory this whole time. Now, when she heard AWP was coming, she pulled the reward money. And so why would she do that if she believed Kiely had been abducted? Does that make any sense to you? It sure doesn't to me. Now, you may totally disagree with me on this, but this is my opinion. I fully believe she already knew where Kiely was and knew AWP was going to find her. And that's why she pulled the reward money. Like I said, you might not agree with this, but looking at Lindsay's attitude and actions the whole time, that's what I believe. Why else would she pull it? And she raised the goal to $150,000 thinking nobody was going to find Kiely. And that could be wrong. That could very well be wrong, but I don't think so. There's just too many coincidences. Then if you look at the GoFundMe page, it shows Lindsay as the beneficiary. See, Amy Quirarte as the organizer and Lindsay Neiman as the beneficiary. Now, this is what it should actually say. Yeah. Yeah, this is what it should actually say. And to me, this is low down, classless, and downright wrong. You just disgust me. And, oh, by the way, there's someone who did some research and discovered that $150,000 was what was owed on the lodge. Coincidence? If you think that, I have some oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you. Oh, and another coincidence. They put the lodge up for sale right before Kiely went missing. And then after Kiely was found, they yanked it off the market. And now their website says they're preparing to open for the fall season. Now, I may come across like a jerk. I'm not trying to be. I may come across like that. And if I do, so be it. But I get tired of people trying to defend Lindsay. I think she's evil. That's my opinion, and nobody's going to change that. There are too many things I've seen to show she is heartless and conniving. And that may piss some people off, but I don't care. To me, she has shown who she is. And I dare anybody to prove me wrong. Ain't going to happen. And deep down, I think a lot of you know good and well that this GoFundMe was set up to line her pockets. Oh, and keep in mind, this wasn't the only place she was begging for money. She was also begging for money on her Venmo account. And also, they were taking donations during the search efforts. They were taking donations at the Celebration of Life ceremony. It's kind of like pro athletes making a statement, it's not about the money. Bull. It's always about the money. Now look, it doesn't cost $63,000 plus whatever else that she received to have someone cremated. When my mom died 2 years ago, she was cremated. We got a really nice urn, multiple death certificates, the whole enchilada. And it cost us a grand total of $1,700. We didn't need to set up a frickin' GoFundMe to pay for that. I think this whole thing has been a sham and a con game, in my opinion. And she has been showing her true colors, and I fully believe she knew where Kiely was, and that's why she yanked the reward money from AWP, because she knew they were going to find her. It would take a whole lot of counter evidence to convince me otherwise. You know, even the Bible says, ye shall know them by their fruits. In other words, we can determine who people are by their actions and attitudes. And I've worked with people all my life in many different capacities, and trust me, I know evil when I see it. All right, I'll jump off my soapbox now, and we'll move on to talking about the cops. All right, flag number 4. Did the police intentionally botch this? You remember the video, the recovery video of AWP when AWP tells Kiely, or it was Doug, tells Kiely's dad and granddad that they had located her, and he pointed and showed them where her car was. And the first words out of the dad's mouth was, how the F did they miss this? That's a good question. And it's the same question a whole lot of us are asking. How did they miss this? Now, there are several videos of it's a boat from, supposedly, I think they said it was from Alameda County, in the water near where Kiely's vehicle was found. And in the video, there's this buoy floating in the water. You know, it's between the boat and the shore. And it's right near where Kiely's vehicle was found, if not right over the top of it. You can see where I have it circled in this photo. Now, if you watch the video, you can see it a whole lot better. You can see it, you know, bobbing around and such. So there's absolutely no way you can tell me that they were right there, had divers right there in that area, and they didn't find their car. There's no way you, especially, I mean, if it was 100 feet down, yeah, I can understand it. But when it was only, well, you said under 14 feet of water, but this was 2 weeks before they found her, so the water was probably a little bit higher because they had started to drain the reservoir to fill Tahoe. But there still had only probably been at the very most 20 feet of water. But there's no way that they searched that area and didn't find it. And the more evidence I see, the more I believe that everybody involved knew she was there and only put on this pretense of a search just for PR purposes and to squeeze the state out of all this money and funding this charade of a search effort. I totally agree with Kiely's dad. How the F did they not find her? That was his gut reaction. His plain gut reaction to what Doug told him. And I really think that anyone with half a brain would have the same reaction. Now, I know it's hard to believe that law enforcement would intentionally not find her, but as the evidence mounts up, it's hard to believe they actually tried. They may have, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. There have been several people make comments on my videos when they put on the search and rescue efforts. The search is drawn out as long as possible so they can extract as much money from the state as they can. I also know this to be the case in cases that I was involved with personally as a cop. Oh, don't want to find her too quick. Need to draw it out so we can make as much money as we can. People, this goes on all the time. And not just in California, but every other state as well. I truly believe they knew where she was, and for whatever reason, they intentionally did not find her. All right, secondly, why did they try to steer AWP away from Prosser Lake? I noticed when Doug from AWP was talking about this, you could tell he was biting his tongue and not saying what he wanted to say. I mean, I'm surprised blood didn't start dripping from his mouth. He was biting his tongue so hard. He does have kind of a light, sarcastic tone when he says that law enforcement told him, "Oh, you don't need to search Prosser. It's already been cleared." And if you watch the interview, you can pick up on his tone. If you pay close attention, you can pick up on his tone that he thought this was rather suspicious. Watch the interview again, and you'll see what I mean if you really pay attention to it. Now, like I said before, law enforcement had supposedly searched Prosser, but also searched Boca and Stampede as well. They had cleared the other two as well as Prosser. They'd cleared all three of them. So, since they had searched all three of them and cleared all three of them, why did they tell AWP they didn't need to search Prosser? They didn't tell them they didn't need to search Boca. They didn't tell them they didn't need to search Stampede. They said, you don't need to search Prosser. We've already cleared it. Now, they couldn't come right out and tell AWP not to search Prosser. I mean, that would raise far too many red flags. But they definitely tried to convince AWP that they didn't need to search Prosser. Just another coincidence? Starting to add up. I don't think it is. Again, couple this with the fact that Lindsay pulled the reward as soon as she knew AWP was coming. You have enough coincidences. After time, they all start to add up to where they are no longer just coincidences. Thirdly, after the vehicle was located, why did law enforcement make AWP leave this area completely? Now, if you've watched a lot of AWP's videos, you see that most of the time they either do the recovery, and law enforcement asks them to do it because they know that they are the experts. They have the float bags. They have all the equipment to do this. Either ask them to do it, or if law enforcement does the recovery, AWP is still at the scene. Now, I saw a couple of videos where law enforcement made them leave, and in both instances, the people there were, law enforcement people were jerks. Just total jerks. So, on these ones where they were allowed to stay in the area, they might only be observers, but they were still there at the scene watching. So why did law enforcement make AWP leave the scene completely to where they were out of viewing range? Well, I think we both know the answer is obvious. They didn't want AWP there seeing what was going on or interfering in any way. They made sure that this whole thing stayed in-house, and there weren't any other witnesses there to see how things were handled. The only problem was there were other people up in choppers and with Zoom cameras and stuff like that recording the whole thing. Now, this recovery was botched to the point where you wonder if they were destroying evidence intentionally. And personally, I think they were. I mean, I was totally disgusted when I saw what they did on this recovery. It was a complete textbook on how not to do things. Every single thing they did was wrong and against any common sense. I mean, anyone with an ounce of common sense knows that you do not flip a car underwater, especially when it has a body in it, as well as other evidence that they know, or they should know anyway, would get flushed out of the car as it was flipped upright. I was just, I was so mad when I saw that. And then later I watched the live stream of Duty-Rons, where he and Ed Wallace were absolutely outraged at how this recovery was done. They were flabbergasted. I mean, they made no bones about it. They were flat out pissed at how law enforcement handled this. They basically said everything I'd been thinking, and man, were they fired up. First off, anyone with a kindergarten education should know to wrap the windows to keep anything from flowing out of the vehicle onto the ocean floor. Is that vehicle flipped, there's going to be water gushing through there, and anything that is near a window is going to come flying out of the vehicle. That's crime scene 101, people. You wrap the windows. That's basic. And by the way, you never see AWP recover a vehicle with open windows without wrapping it first. Never. Secondly, they shouldn't have flipped the vehicle. They should have floated it, and they should have actually let AWP float it, and then take it out upside down the same way that it went in. Now, why is that? Because that body has been submerged in the vehicle for 2 weeks. It's already going to have some damage to it from both being waterlogged and the fish eating at it. Sorry, I know that's gross, but that's reality. The last thing you want to do is flip the vehicle and risk doing any more damage to the body. But maybe your objective is to purposely damage the body as much as possible so you can cover things up and call it an accident. Sorry, but them flipping the vehicle down there, it gets the award for Dumbass of the Year. The only motive I can possibly see for flipping the vehicle and risk damaging the body and losing evidence is it's one more attempt to compromise the evidence so you can complete your cover-up and call it an accident. And at this point, people, to be honest with you, I have a gut feeling that's what they're going to come out and say. Are they really that corrupt? Well, let me digress for a moment here to tell you a story. I was working at a certain police department, and it was a college town, and the college had a campus police department who were actually sworn city officers, but they only had jurisdiction on the campus. They didn't have jurisdiction in the rest of the city. And there was one officer whose wife was from Georgia. And she kept bugging him about moving back to where her family was because she is homesick and missed mommy and daddy. And finally he gave in. He began applying for jobs and got a job as a deputy at this one sheriff's office back there. About 6 months or so later, I saw he was back working for campus police. I asked him, dude, why'd you move back here from Georgia? And he was like, man, and so he started shaking his head. And he began telling me stories about how corrupt his department was and how they would cover up crimes and particularly cover for influential people in the town, people with money, and just plain corrupt in general. He said he couldn't take it anymore. He felt that he himself was in danger because he wouldn't buy into the corruption, and so got out of there as soon as he could. And his wife even agreed with him and said, yeah, let's get out of here. So even though she was happy to be back near mom and daddy, she's like, nah, let's go. And I'll tell you, some of the stories he told me were simply bone-chilling. It was really hard for me to believe cops could be so corrupt. But it happens, people. And I guarantee you it happens a lot more than we might want to believe. I guarantee you. Now take all of this that we've looked at and couple this with the fact that, as we discussed last time, they put out a fake photo saying it was Kiely at a store at a certain time when it's evident the photo isn't of Kiely. Also keep in mind that there are no photos of Kiely at this supposed party. All we have is the testimony of a few witnesses that I find less than credible, honestly. Why, when Kiely was found, Sammy said, "Oh, no, she wasn't"? Why would you say that? Why, when she was told about Nick, the service driver, seeing two people with Kiely's car, Kate said, "No, that's all lies. It's BS." Until she was told it was on video, then not another word. Why did Sammy totally slip up when doing that interview with Tony Dodgeball and said, "No, that's not where she was found"? Yeah. Sammy, you knew right where she was. You knew. Sorry, people. But I believe all of these people knew right where Kiely was and covered it up. It's just too coincidental to be coincidental. The supposed friends knew it. The family, except maybe the dad. I don't think the dad didn't know. It was obvious. But I think Lindsay knew. She knew it. The cops knew it. And I'm not, and you may get upset with me for saying this, but at this point, I'm not really sure about the grandpa. He seemed upset, but his association with Juan or Check It TV gives me a little bit of pause. You may not agree with me, and that's fine. I'm just being honest with you. I'm not 100% convinced. And that video where he was given the laptop was definitely staged and made for clicks. Also, people, there's been a couple of different videos that were made, and several people have noticed in the different videos, it's not the same laptop. Explain that one. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. All I can tell you is if they come out and say this was an accident, the shite's going to hit the fan. There's too many of us on here who see through the charade and are not going to accept that this was an accident. Not only people saying, well, it may be an accident. No. There's certain people say, well, I'm not willing to go, be dogmatic and say it was an accident. Well, I am. I am. I'm adamant in saying it was not an accident. It's not an accident. And I don't care who we have to contact, what links we have to go to. We cannot let this rest. If they come out and they say it's an accident, I know that myself and a whole lot of you out there are not going to let it rest. Kiely deserves justice. She deserves it. She did not deserve to die. Plain and simple. Justice for Kiely, people. She deserves that. She deserves it. Take care. Have a good weekend.